In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 major things that you can do that will help bring balance to your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions using this new moon in Capricorn on January 12th to your advantage. Hello, fellow flames. In case we haven't met, my name is Dr. Harmony, and I will help you live fearless, live loved, and live free. And if you are new to my channel, welcome. If you're coming back, welcome back, and make sure to like, comment, share the shine, hit the subscription button so you know when my weekly transformational and ascension assistance videos come live to support you along your journey, not just your twin flame journey, but your personal development. And as we move forward in this new year, we have Capricorn coming in right on time with that earthy, fixated energy that is helping us move forward steadfast. And I want to share with you kind of like the portal of energy from the timeline of the full moon on December 29th to here on the new moon on January the 12th. So that was a Cancer new moon. So we were looking at a feminine energy that was asking us to take masculine action, asking us to get busy and to start clearing space within our thoughts, feelings, emotions, and in our life in order to create space to bring in that which we have been calling from our higher soul to align with from the highest place and the highest good of what our soul blueprint is. So as we've been moving forward in that energy and a lot of people taking action and clearing space to bring in the new energy, this is the new energy showing up. And in this new energy that's showing up on this new moon, it is coming at a place of being a masculine energy, but being asked to integrate with it, connect to it, and embody it in a feminine way. And what that means is that, you know, Capricorn's a little bit more masculine type energy. So from the opposite in bringing this whole portal full cycle and in balance, it's all representing balance of our inner masculine and our inner feminine energies that are needing to come into alignment of our polarities in the contrast, bringing not only, like, say, the action-oriented things that we need to do to create this space, but now that we've done some creating space, we need to be the yin, we need to be the feminine, we need to allow these things to show up. And what this is all doing as we're coming forward in the new year and we're being presented with all of the things and revisiting things that are coming full circle and full cycle, it's another time around the block basically to view it from a higher perspective and to really come into the place of what decisions do I make at this highest version of me. And it's like splitting a hair. And what I want you to know from my own experience, what I'm seeing with clients is that it's not a right or a wrong, that in the splitting hair moment, it's kind of like it doesn't even matter which choice you choose, because it's in neutrality as to the contrast and what it is your reasoning to put a thought into, to put an emotion into, to have to take action. Should I or should I not do this? And I can't discern whether that's of my highest good or not. Or am I repeating patterns that I don't want to repeat? And so that basically at this point, it's like the contrast and those polarities being equal, meaning that now what it is time to bring these contrasts and the polarities and the dualities into the unity. And the way that you do that is to bring your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, and your actions to all come into alignment that will help you get centered. So while I'm going to share with you 3 things and more of action steps that you can do to take in these things and give you some examples of you know, some reflections that you can do to implement within your processing, that the number one thing here that I will say that's so important is that in all of this, it's important that you stay super centered and super balanced from a place of no judgment and really just stepping back, especially in this timeline now. So where, we were taking some action, now is like our step back in this energy. And it's going to help us then basically bring into form, because the Capricorn, like I said, is it's grounding, it's rooted, and it's also then, as we get these new downloads and these upgrades from the highest frequency that's coming into the earth plane in 12,000 years of, as far as energy that's coming in and upgrading everyone to their highest timeline, then it's really creating some things that we have to take some action and, as I mentioned, to be able to make our reality match that. So this energy is coming in from a supportive way to help us bring these things into alignment, so that way when you make these choices and decisions, you are moving towards that highest good, but you're doing it in a balanced way between your masculine action and your feminine flow of how you get through this process. So one of the first major things that you can do during this energy is to implement cross-pattern thoughts. So as these thoughts are coming in to really awaken you to a higher consciousness and more that is of the highest good, and you're beginning to accelerate into the highest frequency of thoughts, because remember, thoughts are an energy and they represent a frequency, and based on your thoughts, wherever they are, they're really turning into an emotion that is how you are either responding or reacting. So it's so important during this time, as we're being somewhat tested in a feminine way, meaning doing less, is as you go inward and you start to pay attention to your thoughts and do some reflection on the thoughts. One of the things that we have done all this time is judged these thoughts, thinking that we're sabotaging ourselves, or that we're coming at this from the karmic pattern, or we are looking at these thoughts and being concerned that we are going to take action that is going to repeat a pattern, or in our emotional state to be fearful that you're going backwards. And in this timeline, when I say do cross-pattern thoughts, if you have been at a place of thinking that everything's a lesson, that you begin to look at those thoughts and feel that fear come up that says this is a pattern, or maybe I even had, say, I had an attachment to a certain outcome, or I am afraid that if I do this, I'll get out of alignment with the highest good. And maybe you even set yourself up to feel like you know what your highest good is, and that you're going to eradicate and eliminate anything and everything that pulls you out of alignment with it. And in one sense, you should. But the fact that your thoughts are coming through and they're starting to get really like laser light focused, they can become a little bit constricting towards even something good, like they can be towards something that's negative. So, we might be in a good state of place, but our thoughts may have become rigid overall. And, rigid thoughts really create a rigid body, which creates rigid emotions, which creates a rigid life and represents the, everything around you was a thought before it became a thing. And so basically in this process, really start to pay attention to your attention. And if you are starting to say, for instance, let's just say that you have been like really focused on very positive thoughts, and you have kind of pulled yourself out of the karma and the negative thinking, and you're getting really zoned in on what you want. But then maybe something's showing up to support you, a person or an experience, and you're getting these feelings of not sure if you should move in that direction, because you kind of came into the thought that your highest good represented X, Y, and Z. And so based on that, then you might be missing an opportunity of something that's to support you. So it's a reminder as you go forward not to judge the thoughts that maybe they're not really repeating themselves towards old patterns. Maybe it's pulling the pendulum back into balance. So anytime, we say maybe if you've been in like a negative state and everything's been focused on the negative. Well, to get the pendulum to the other side, it's like you got to separate from that negative, and really you may not know what you want, but you know what you don't want. So you start to basically go from one side of that pendulum to the other, and then you get really concerned about that if anything that comes across your path, or any action or any thought that comes in pulls you from that old pathway, you're really resistant to like even moving in that direction. And what this is doing in this thought is bringing balance to both thoughts, because thoughts like this are going to exist, so that you're kind of giving your ego sometimes a say, that's giving the inner child a little bit of a say. Then as you hear that thought and you learn to like bring that thought into the heart and shift that from head logic into a heart language, and come into acceptance that that thought is a part of you, and that it's okay, and that you don't judge it, and you stop trying to figure out why it's all going that way, and maybe setting yourself up through all these experiences to repeating the patterns of why you're still having to process so much to begin with, because you've created a way that you navigate this ascension process, and that everything becomes a test and everything becomes a lesson. And basically what I'm saying, what if, you start judging these thoughts and thinking it's a lesson, and you think that you're going backwards and that you want to make a decision that's right, and you're being very cautious and very rigid about it? What if you just got present, and in that presence, you didn't judge either or, and you just did what you felt guided to do, that's going to bring you in the most peace and the most power and the centeredness of that? And maybe at the underlying part of that, that instead of being afraid of it repeating a pattern, maybe you're just doing it because it's something that's becoming more flexible or more in flow. Or maybe you've been too much in the flow of these things, and maybe then it's time to then get a little more rigid, or a little bit more structure, or a little bit more shifted. So this is where this is not cookie cutter. This depends on everybody, wherever you're at. You are being presented right now with some things to take you to the opposite place, but the goal is then to bring that into neutrality. And that can also be in these thoughts. For instance, I'm just going to give you, this is super simple, but it's a good example. So like I'm moving all into the femininity, and my everything's changing. My thoughts are changing. My desires are changing. My taste is changing, and how I show up is changing. And one of the big key things that came to me this week is, as I was like going to get my nails done, and I was, not only did I start shifting into wearing pink in the last little bit, but I was like, oh, they're not going to be chunky square anymore. I'm becoming feminine. I want feminine nails, so I'm going to get them more in an almond shape. And so I got my nails done. I posted this on Instagram, so you might have saw this, but so anyway, I went for more of a feminine approach. Now, what's really interesting is, and I'll share more about that because I actually did a little vlog on it, but what's really interesting is that my whole appointment got shifted from, like, I scheduled one with somebody specific, waited 45 minutes for that to show up for that, to they forgot to write me down, to have to see somebody else. That instantly put me in a place of power, and wasn't sure if that was okay, but then realized in all the big scheme of things that remembering that there's a divine order and that there is an innate intelligence that's directing, and maybe, I was supposed to show up at a different time, a different person, different surrounding, different seat. And then I started talking about how I'm moving into my femininity. And there was even somebody next to me, and I've been talking to a lot of people about this. They're doing the opposite of everything that they've done. So if you're doing that, let me know that you're doing that. So she basically had always went dark nails, and she then said her nails were going light. And so as I just started talking just at a normal, like being me and showing up with like my changes and what I'm going through, everybody was so curious. Everyone wanted to hear me. All the nail salon or the nail tech on each side of me, and then the person on each side of me, all were like just zoned in. In fact, they may be watching this because they wanted to know the channel. So this isn't the vlog, guys, but if you're here, it was great meeting you. And anyway, So, but to give you that example, everyone around that I'm talking to is really in this place of doing the opposite of what they've done. And this is why, because you're bringing it into neutrality. So therefore, if your thoughts are being pulled out of alignment with what they used to be to another way, and you feel like you're getting down to it, you have a couple options here to kind of bring that full circle. In the splitting hair decision, you want to, in that cross pattern thought, you want to try to shift your thoughts to the opposite of what your pattern has been, whether that's been positive or negative, or should I or shouldn't I. But ultimately, to shift that quickly, you want to basically let go of your resistance from one side to the other. So if you're being worried that, you know, having this thought's going to repeat a pattern and you're kind of resisting that thought and you've got a lot of fear that you're facing coming up, don't resist the fear. Let the fear come through and go to the end of whatever that is. And your action may not have to, it may not have to go in the direction of what it is that you are fearful of. But if you let go of the resistance to what you're fearful of, then what you're fearful of won't necessarily have to be followed through with and come through with. And in going down that process then brings you back to the neutrality of going to the opposite of where you're at, and then brings that back to neutrality that then allows your thoughts to become more centered, to become more in alignment with you, where you're at now, keeping you at more peace, more present, more purpose, and will bring more pleasure to your life in the moment. So the second major thing you can do during this time that we're bringing balance into these thoughts, feelings, and actions is to be able to do cross-pattern emotions. And basically, those emotions start with a thought. So you're going to go through the thought, which is why I went through so much of that in the beginning, to be able to shift that thought, which will then shift your emotion. However, what is happening in that, it's increasing and bringing balance and harmonic alignment of your emotional intelligence, allowing you to experience the pain, but then transforming the pain into a more purpose or more pleasure, so that way you're able to shift it and to not separate from it. So basically, you know, as we've been going through this whole journey, we have separated from that emotional side or emotional state due to wounds. And the wounds then keep getting triggered, say by your twin flame that's coming in to trigger the wounds in order to bring it to the light, which is in a thought or awareness, to see it, so that then you can transform that through your perception and shift the way you think about it, which will shift the way you feel about it. And so this is helping to expand your emotional intelligence by separating from that. But know that these emotions start with the feeling. I'm sorry, these emotions are the feeling, but starts with the thought. And the other thing is keeping in mind that what you're attracting for the experience is coming from the emotional wounds. So if you're continue to be triggered for these emotions to come up, and the way you've managed them, let's say you've cut them off and you haven't wanted to feel the pain or the wound of the, say, childhood abandonment or your abandonment with your twin, or things that's happened with your parents, and those basically those wounds that basically are multiple lives. But even if you let go of the energy pattern to that, it's the program that's still running. So by me telling you to do the cross pattern action, thought, feeling in this, which the action is the third one, but by being able to allow yourself to come into a place of the opposite feeling you've had. So if you've always tried to be a positive person and you don't allow yourself to experience the ego side, and you don't allow that ego to have a voice, and you separate from that, that separation of that is going to create the pain and the resistance. And sometimes that's of your truth. So for instance, the pain could be coming because you have something inside of you that needs to be expressed and you've suppressed it, which is a stuffing of those emotions. Then it's sitting there eating at you. It's causing you to robbing you of your vibration. It's lowering your energy. It's robbing you of power. And then you are creating more resistance, and it's triggering those thoughts to continue the cycle of this insanity. And then that's continuing to cause the emotions to be triggered. And so basically, by being able to own your truth, voice your truth, be able to express your truth in a way that without no apology or any validation, you're able to show up in your daily life and share who you are and how you feel. You know, there's such things as like different kinds and different forms of honesty. One is, you know, maybe a flat out lie. One is that you might try to evade trying to like share something with someone because you're afraid that, you know, of what they're going to feel or what it's going to do to them. Well, then you're not only carrying the emotion for them and enabling them, but you're not in your fullest, transparent, authentic truth if you're suppressing and hiding who you are out of fear of what that's going to do to another person. So it's about letting go of those things, and it's about you being able to share who you are, say what you need to say. So basically, if you've kind of recapping that, if you've been in a place of trying to only be positive thoughts because you're trying to move beyond the fears and the lower vibrational thinking patterns, which we do want to do, but you don't allow that inner ego inside of you or the inner wound inside of you to be heard, it can't come up for clearing. Therefore, it can't expand the emotional range, and you're separating from the emotion. And that's pulling you out of alignment with all of you and your highest truth. And then you begin to suppress all of that instead of express it. Now, there's a playlist that I have from about 3 years ago or something like that, that's called Return to Oneness. And it's about getting into alignment. So we're talking about you coming into your fullest, highest version of you, calls for getting into alignment with your truth, your highest good, the highest authentic self, your highest transparency, and coming into the alignment of all of you that will align you within your source energy at its highest potential, that then will attract towards you everything around you that exists, including a beloved, and also including your purpose. And so if you're trying to like search for these things outside of you before you come into alignment with all of you and all of this highest vibration of alignment with the source energy, because you aligning with you is how you align at your fullest potential with source, which is the vortex of all possibilities. Otherwise, you're separating from all of that. So there's a playlist. I will put a link at the end of this to a playlist, as well as in the description below, and possibly a card up here. So make sure, one thing I will tell you is that video, you will see my own like transformation of how I showed up then, how I delivered things then, how I was still in my masculine, even though I was shifting into my feminine. I mean, I even had blonde hair at the time, different hairstyle, you know, talking about, you know, judgment. I could probably go on and on about kind of judging that, but that's how I got here. Like, so if I didn't go through that, I always tell people, don't wait to get it perfect and do it. You get it perfect doing it, or as you show up in that alignment of doing, you become it. And so stop trying to figure everything out, get more centered, and that's going to get you in alignment with you. And then before you know it, you will begin to transform without seeing every little step. It's like, when is the defining moment between a child and an adult, right? There isn't one. So all of this is about it's unfolding, and it's got some divine order to it. And so you just got to show up in a place of acceptance and allowing and not judging it, as I said, but these cross pattern emotions, allowing yourself to come to the opposite side, will stop separating from the validity of how you feel, and then you're going to be able to show up and express that. So now that we've talked about doing cross pattern thoughts, that allows you to be able to expand all of you without judgment of what's coming through, and therefore you're not resisting it, and that doesn't create rigidity, and you're surrendering to all of that, which is going to help surrender to your emotions and increase your emotional intelligence, expand it into more of you in a very authentic place. From here is where you'll get into alignment with your truth. And you can do the third one, which is coming into cross pattern actions. And so basically in that, if you have been taking action in a place of fear or judgment, now's the time to let go of the fear and the judgment and to basically pull back and allow yourself to maybe pause. Maybe the action now is not to be doing, like I said, with this energy, it's to be more being and feel. But if you've been in a place of, like me, going into your den and really feeling this out and feeling connected and feeling like you're collecting, like, creating space for the energy of all this to come in. And on one end of that, it's now feeling like it's go time, but you don't want to repeat a pattern and you don't want to basically go back to an old pattern of doing things that pull you out of alignment with that sense of self or sense of being. Then it's basically allowing yourself to find the balance in a sense that if you feel like taking action, do it. But if you feel like resting, do it. But if you get stuck in too much of one way, and then you have something crossing your path that requires a decision, and a decision that you need to make, and either you need to make it quickly or you need to rest on it. All right. So that's where it's really, this is kind of to sum up what I said about how things could be really confusing and splitting a hair, because I can tell you right now, there are certain things that have crossed my path, even in the last week or two, that has needed and required action that was instantaneous, with no thought and no judgment and no fear and, you know, no doubt, and just, and honestly, like whenever I did, there's a couple things in that I saw instantaneously. It catapulted me into that next timeline for that particular thing that I basically chose to do. It was for my highest good of my future. And by taking action, it literally propelled me really quickly by doing that. But I needed to not question it, is the point. I couldn't question it, or I'm talking, and I'm not kidding when I say it was a split-second decision. And that split-second decision in trust and in full faith and just feeling in alignment and feeling good and without judging it and without worrying about patterns and all the fears that could have come out, that would have cost me like something out of it, that by me just doing it without the split second put me light years ahead in some things that I'm personally working on. Now, on the flip side of that, there are some things that, you know, has crossed my path to clear space that's like opening up and looking at anything coming in as being like, is it of the highest good? Or should I hold that space? Or should I even take action now? Basically, what you got to realize, there are some things with the divine connected to this as well. And what I mean by that is, because we're going in this quantum leap, it's creating and causing and putting us in a position to go to the next level, which requires a lot of trust, timing, and tolerance. And also to know that in that it's bringing us into more, not just our truth, as I mentioned, but more in our ability to trust ourselves, trust our guidance, and trust the journey and trust the process. And to know that there is somewhat a divine order. So that sometimes by holding off, that it's allowing the process to unfold without having to get in the way of it ourselves. And then that's our feminine side that's allowing things to unfold. So this is where I'm saying you might be teetering both of those inside of you, because in all that exists, you might need to make instantaneous actions and thoughts, and you might need to pause. And there's power in the pause. And then between those two and that splitting the hair of it, you might need to there's not going to be a right or wrong. It's really just about staying present and in this moment and going with that split second decision. But if you'd have made the decision, and let's just say that it turned out to be not the highest good, because there's not a wrong choice, but let's say it wasn't the highest good, then from there, you don't need to judge that either. You need to know that now all you're doing is bringing it back to balance. You're not too much on one side or the other. You're coming into the balance that as you stay centered, you did what it took to keep you in peace. You did what it took to keep you in power. You stopped resisting the idea of the thought and the emotion. You'll let those come in, but then you basically took your action from a place of being in power when you did that, which when you do that action, then 99.9% of the time, that action will basically be of the highest good, but it may not be of your highest good in 5 years from now or in 1 year from now, but it's your highest good in the now. That's what's key. This is huge because like holding the space for the highest good, we're thinking a year, permanent, the end result, but that is to be determined. We may not know what all of that is yet, but it might be the right highest good now. This is so important, and that's going to bring the balance to where you're going. That says there's a divine alignment, there's a divine timing, and that says that you're trusting the process and you're getting out of the way of it, basically. And then if there are delays in such things like this, such as me getting this video out, that I don't normally do it on Tuesdays, but you know, I felt really guided to do it for this energy, but I couldn't get to it sooner. And even today, I'd planned to do it more in the morning, and it's afternoon. And by the time they get it out, it's going to be like late afternoon to early evening for you. And all I can tell you in that is, in the divine appointment of that, is that I showed up and did the best I could. And that in that, with that being said, that says that the divine maybe wants this to be heard at a very specific time, or, you know, for whatever reason, from a higher place, the guidance is coming in now to allow things to go into the highest good and the highest place without us needing or having to judge it. Because if we get out of the way, everything's going to align perfectly if we stay centered. And that's why I said at the beginning of this, if you can keep centered. Now, how this Capricorn energy, one more time to kind of repeat that, this Capricorn energy is helping us bring this into form in our reality, the things that we think about, the things that we feel, and the actions that we take, that we need to take either in a yin or a yang way, a masculine or a feminine way, to bring into form our highest good into our reality. So to bring in our highest good into our reality requires this balance and the thoughts, requires the balance and the emotions, requires the balance and the actions, and then it requires the thoughts, feelings, actions coming into the alignment of all of those to create the centered being that's able to connect to the source light of the highest frequency of that version. Because otherwise, if we pull out of alignment with ourselves, we're pulling out of alignment with source for the highest good of that. And then we can't tip into the highest frequency that we're to download and be the conduit right now. And so in the feminine, masculine energy of the feminine side of receiving it, we are using this Capricorn energy to anchor and embody all of that high frequency to be the conduit and anchored into earth. And as we make our thoughts, feelings, and actions come into balance, that means everything around us will, which means that our highest good is here. So that's what I have for you. If you are new, as I said, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Be sure to let me know how this energy is impacting you, or how this message has inspired you, or what's going on in your world. And the other thing I want you to know is I have two major resources right now. One is if you're continuing to be triggered and you need the mirrored reflection of your twin to be able to stop running from your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and actions, that mirrored reflection exercise that I have in a link below, that will really help you. And if you've kind of gotten beyond that and you don't know where to start with your purpose and you want to create more passion and joy, the Unlock Your Passion project is in a link below, so get plugged into that. May you always face your fears, find freedom, and glow forward on fire. See you in the next video. Namaste.